Hey guys, welcome here. Today we are going to understand one of the most important concepts in generative AI, how an LLM actually works. We use tools like ChatGPT almost every day, but have you ever wondered what actually happens behind the scenes when you type a question and get a response within a few seconds? How does the model take a normal human language, understand the context, and generate a meaningful answer? In this video, we are going to understand the complete flow of an LLM in a very simple way. We'll follow the journey step by step, starting from text, then moving through tokenization, token IDs, embeddings, transformers, self-attention, next token prediction, and finally, how the model repeats this process to generate the complete response. So, let's start from the very beginning and understand how an LLM actually works. Let's start with text because everything begins with what we type. For example, imagine that we ask the LLM, what is machine learning? This is normal human language, but a neural network cannot directly process this sentence as words the way we see it. Neural networks work with numerical data. So the first thing the LLM needs to do is convert our text into a format that the model can process. That's where tokenization comes in. Tokenization is the process of breaking text into smaller pieces called tokens. For example, the sentence machine learning is powerful could be divided into tokens such as machine learning is and powerful. However, a token doesn't always represent one complete word. A word can sometimes be divided into smaller pieces, and punctuation can also be represented as tokens. So, simply put, tokenization converts our text into a sequence of smaller pieces that the LLM can process. But these tokens are still not the numerical format that the neural network needs. So, the next step is to convert them into token IDs. A token ID is a unique numerical identifier assigned to each token in the model's vocabulary. For example, just for understanding, the token machine might have an ID such as 5421, while learning might have another ID such as 8712. These numbers don't represent the meaning of the words, they simply identify which tokens we're dealing with. So, our original sentence has now changed from human readable text into a sequence of numerical IDs. But these IDs alone don't tell the neural network much about the relationships or meaning of the tokens, so we need another transformation called embeddings. An embedding is a numerical vector that represents a token in a way that the neural network can process and learn from. Instead of representing the token machine with just one number like 5421, the model represents it using a vector containing many numerical values. These values form a learned representation of the token, allowing the model to capture useful relationships and patterns between different tokens and concepts. For example, during training, the model can learn that concepts such as Python, programming, and code are related. So, in simple terms, embeddings convert token IDs into rich numerical representations that carry learned information about the tokens. These embeddings are then passed into the main architecture of the LLM, the transformer. The transformer is the main neural network architecture used by modern LLMs to process sequences of tokens. Its job is to take the numerical representations of the tokens and process them so the model can capture relationships and context within the input. A transformer is made up of multiple layers, and each layer contains several important components that transform the information as it moves through the network. One of the most important components inside the transformer is self-attention, which allows the model to determine how different tokens relate to each other. Self-attention is a mechanism that allows each token to look at other tokens in the same sequence and determine which ones are important for understanding its context. For example, consider the sentence, "The cat drank the milk because it was hungry." When the model processes the word it needs to determine what it refers to. Self-attention allows the model to examine the other tokens and calculate how strongly they should influence the current token. In simple terms, self-attention helps the model understand which parts of the input are relevant to each other. This is one of the key reasons transformers are so powerful for language understanding. Inside self-attention, there are three important concepts called query, key, and value, commonly written as Q, K, and V. You can think of the query as asking, what information am I looking for? The key as describing, what information do I represent? and the value as containing what information should I provide. The model compares queries and keys to calculate how relevant different tokens are to each other and then uses the values to combine information from the relevant tokens. In this way, the attention mechanism determines how much influence different tokens should have when building the representation of the current token. The transformer doesn't use just one attention mechanism. It uses multiple attention mechanisms called attention heads, and together they form multi-head attention. Each attention head can learn different types of relationships within the sequence. For example, one head might learn relationships between words that are grammatically connected, while another might focus on relationships between words that are farther apart. The model learns these relationships automatically during training. By combining information from multiple attention heads, the transformer can understand different aspects of the same input at the same time. Now, the information doesn't pass through just one attention operation. Modern LLMs contain many transformer layers stacked one after another. Each layer takes the representations produced by the previous layer, applies attention and other neural network operations, and produces a new representation. As the information passes through these layers, the model can build increasingly complex representations of the input. So, the transformer is essentially the main processing engine of the LLM with multiple layers working together to transform the token representations and capture the context needed for prediction. After the input has passed through the transformer layers, the model reaches the most important stage of generation, next token prediction. The model takes everything it has processed so far and calculates probabilities for possible next tokens. For example, if the input is the capital of France is, the model may assign a very high probability to the token Paris, while other tokens receive lower probabilities. The model then selects a token according to its generation strategy. If it selects Paris, the sequence becomes the capital of France is Paris. This is the fundamental generation task of an autoregressive LLM, predicting what token should come next based on the context that came before it. But the model doesn't stop after predicting one token. This is where the final and very important part of the flow happens. Repeat. Once the model generates a token, that new token is added to the existing sequence and becomes part of the context. The model then processes the updated context and predicts the next token. It does this repeatedly, one token at a time. For example, it might generate Paris, and then continue depending on what response it is generating. So, the process is essentially that the model predicts a token, adds it to the sequence, uses the updated context, predicts the next token, and continues repeating this process until the model determines that the response is complete. Now let's connect everything together. We start with text, which is the human language input we provide to the LLM. The text goes through tokenization, where it is broken into smaller pieces called tokens. Those tokens are converted into token IDs, which are numerical identifiers. The token IDs are then transformed into embeddings, which are learned numerical representations of the tokens. These embeddings enter the transformer, the main neural network architecture that processes the sequence. Inside the transformer, self-attention allows tokens to consider other tokens and determine their relationships and importance. After passing through multiple transformer layers, the model performs next token prediction, where it calculates probabilities for possible next tokens and selects one. That new token is added to the sequence, and the entire prediction process repeats again and again until the complete response is generated.